Hey guys, Dr. Devin here with, my mama bear sweetheart, Miss Rachel Hauber.
Hello.
So you guys have seen Rachel at The Big Idea as one of our speakers, and if you haven't yet, you need to go back to 2022 and 2021 and catch her story, her family's story, Baker's story, actually Freedom Revival too.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's multiple ways you can go back and see the journey unfold. And that's what I honestly love about the network setup is that it's a time capsule.
Yeah.
And it is documenting, because this is a journey, right? When we
Yes.
talk about the big idea, there are layers to a health and healing journey, right? So if I ask you today, and we're recording, so this is for you, but it's also a little timestamp that we can come back to. And I say, Rachel, fall 2022, what is the big idea? How do you answer that today?
Today, right? The big idea to me is I've learned through the journey of the last 3 years that to go inward and to not seek so much outward approval and help. And I've got everything I need already in here. If I can just acknowledge and realize that, which has been a process, right? I'm over 3 years into this now, and you just grow like day by day. You take it a day at a time, but really the big idea is you, and it all starts in here and in here.
And it makes us feel a little crazy because I feel like we're like saying it and we're just like, maybe if I say it just right, this ADIO thing, right? So the month of October, our network obsession is around above, down, inside out, which is essentially what this beautiful woman just said, that like we get connected with the A, the above, God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. Then you get connected, D, down inside your own soul, your own body, then inside your home and your inner relationships, then you go outward. But we kind of live in a world that's very outside in, not inside out.
Oh, yeah.
So your big idea is really a perspective, a life perspective of being able to perceive like yourself, what's going on with your family, your kids, life in general, the news media, COVID probably, right? Like this is a way of life. So when did you get the big idea? What are some of the big moments that you would like look through and go, man, I wish if I would have known some of those things sooner, but here's my waking up.
Well, and I mean, going back to like what I've shared at the big idea, because for me, that's what it's really always been about, right? When years ago, like we were just going through some really rough stuff with one of my 4 boys, and in a lot of ways, like felt like we completely lost him. And everywhere I went, it was very much like outside in, and like none of it was working. And I just knew somewhere in me that, like, what the hell is going on? I was just so frustrated, angry all the time, all of this. And, thankfully, like, I do have a relationship with God, and I very much went there. But in that, not at all acknowledging all of my own stuff, right? Begging for miracles, praying endlessly and all the things, right? But it's like for a long time, I wish I would have gotten the big idea sooner. And I think it all works out like as it should, right? But
pain's a good teacher that way.
Yeah, for quite a while, it was like I was just all in, reliant on like, okay, God, like, not a bad thing, but I finally, when I was willing to acknowledge and unpack everything I was carrying inside, that's when the light went off for not just me, but for my child. And it was like, he just became, it was like light bulbs were just like coming on, and all of this progress and healing like totally took off. You were kind of a witness to all of that. And it's just continued to be that way. It is a journey.
And so mini context here for those of you that haven't heard her story, so her son Baker was diagnosed with autism, and she's not exaggerating by saying that it felt like losing him, because in an instant he completely shifted and nonverbal and lots of symptoms. And when he would come in and get adjusted, or when you're going through all the protocols, it's like you go down a train like autism or cancer, and it's like, just do these things, right? It's like, pray and do these things. But to mothers specifically, and I can remember these conversations with you, and this is the if they knew type stuff where it's like, I can remember going, but what about you? You know, it's like, we're focused on him, but he is you. I mean, cellularly, you mother and child, we are connected. And if you don't heal you, the shame, the guilt, the stuff, he can't heal. And the second you came out onto that stage at Freedom Revival and you were really going all in to heal your own heart and forgive yourself more than anyone, I mean, the words, the vocabulary, I mean, the breakthroughs were crazy.
Yeah, truly. And, you know, I don't know. It's just like crazy to look back on, because I do remember those conversations. And honestly, a little bit, I kind of leave and be like, I mean, when you're in the thick of it, like, there's no time for me. Like, because it felt like that. And I was in a panic mode for quite a while, like with him, because it was like, okay, like I've only got so much time. And like, this is what it felt, just very hurried and so consuming, because it is. And I don't know how to explain it until you kind of like, you start to learn all of this. But it was just like, when I got on that stage at the Freedom Revival, and for a long time, like, I didn't want to publicly share it because I carried like such intense shame over his injury and all of it. But it was like, even just literally speaking the words and like getting it out of my body, that's like when it all like started happening for me, I feel like. And it like really clicked inside, you know, it can be as easy as that. It can be like that simple. It doesn't, you know, have to be me like going to like hours of therapy and all of these things. Not that that's bad, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's the depth at which you feel the release, right? I mean, and for some people, it might not be shame, it might be anger, it might be fear, it might be sad. I mean, there's all of these, you know, lower vibrations, and it's like, it's emotional, and it's dealing with our own physical toxicities or chemical toxicity. I mean, it's not one thing, it's all things. And when you think about the airline where they say, put your mask on, then help your child, as cliche as it is, like, we can't give, well, we don't have.
Right.
And Baker, I mean, you know, and then you get going and you forget, and moms just, we tend to kind of just live for our families, and you've got to sometimes not put yourself first, but be able to intentionally take time to realize that by serving you, you're serving them. And so what are some things like tangibly that you do now? Because you forget, right? Like you didn't get bopped on the head and then it's like, oh, I got the big idea, I'm good now. Like I can just go on. There's more to learn, more to do. The to-do list doesn't go away. You've got 4 sons, you're working, you're serving this mission. How do you make time for you, or how do you help yourself remember when you start to forget?
Yeah. I've just tried to learn to be really intentional about it. Thankfully, I have a super supportive husband and some close like friends around me that I now like feel comfortable enough. And I can almost see it happening, right? Because it's like I'm a little more sensitive when it comes to Baker, and tend to carry or take on like a lot of everything that's going on with him. And so it's like here and there, if we have the occasional like, or if he has the occasional, see, I still say it, like if he has the occasional like kind of rough day, I so quickly and easily like absorb that or attempt to. And then it's like I start having all these like PTSD kind of feelings, right? And yeah, like I'll even just look at my husband now and he's like, go outside. Like just, you know.
Anybody listening, because this would be, I would love to hear from you in comments, like if you find yourself doing this too, but it's, you know, it's not mine. We are so empathetic and so connected in some of our closest relationships. I remember with my mom taking her to the cancer center and doing chemo and watching her suffering. I felt like I could feel the pain. I mean, when it's that close and you so badly want to fix it or make it right, like just like you said, we instead of him. But taking that breath of separation, you can actually serve the person you're trying so desperately to support. at a higher capacity, don't you think?
Yeah.
Of being, being able to go, it's not mine. This is not happening to me, but I am in it. So why am I here? What can I do, right? And
if you can have that awareness, and again, it's super hard, especially when it's somebody you're close to, like a child or a parent, to watch them suffer. But if you can have the awareness that this is for me, this is for them, and while it might be really awful and really challenging, like to go through it, if you can just like keep that in the back of your mind of like, this is serving a higher purpose, and like there is a point to all of this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you wouldn't be in it if you weren't meant or destined in some way to walk through it.
Yeah, and if you truly believe it won't always be this way.
Right.
You know? Like, I think that's a huge part of it, too, is, not losing sight of that. Like, that is part of the big idea.
Talk to me about community, because you've mentioned it, but, like, it literally takes a village.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has that unfolded for you, and how important is that to somebody, listening that's in the thick of things with their child or themselves or with a family member? Like, talk about connection and community.
Sure. I mean, it's different for everybody. I can speak to my experience. Like, I grew up as a pretty shy, private, like more soft-spoken, like just kind of keep to myself, like people-pleasing, So going through all of this and having my own internal and like intuition, feelings, and all of that, again, like I was just getting so frustrated. Every expert, doctor, specialist, everywhere we went, like, do this, do this, do this. And it was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like,
right.
And then if I would try it, like, it wouldn't work, all these things. And so I really had to, like, get out of my comfort zone and just really put myself out there, like, to find my own community. And, like, community, it means something different for everybody. Like, for me, a big part of that was, like, finding the right people that could help he and I, like therapy-wise and all of that. And that's a whole experience, but like you got to get really uncomfortable. I'm not a confrontational person, but the mama bear like in me came out for sure in that, right? And then it drew out a whole other side of me with just, for me personally, like as uncomfortable as I feel like it always kind of will be, like to kind of share so sometimes publicly, like our story and everything, but community to me is like, I would never wish what he has gone through and what we've gone through as a family on anyone. And so it doesn't matter, like, how uncomfortable, like, it might make me feel temporarily, like, sharing their story and, like, making connections. And I've just made so many the last few years. Like, every time it's been hard and uncomfortable, the amount of, like, times I've hugged other parents and, like, shared that connection and, like, tears, and just for them to also know that they're not alone. Like, you can't put a price on any of that, So, and I will say, too, like, the more you speak your truth and you really, truly step into that, like, it might sound hokey, but I just do believe, like, you kind of create that space for you to be drawn to, like, those like-minded people,
Absolutely.
Like, you're just drawn to each other.
Well, you hear your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And so, and if thoughts become things and words create our reality, it's no mistake that as we step more certainly into our truth, then all of a sudden the people and the things around us start to shift.
Right.
And so when we look at like the network and somebody who might be new here or, jumping into all these past big ideas, what's a good starting point when it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much, like, where do I start? What would you say to that person who might be sitting there going, this all sounds great, but how do I get it going in me?
Be really intentional, because it could potentially be like a little overwhelming at first, because there is like so much awesome content, truly, and it's an array of like topics, right? So it could potentially feel overwhelming to like go down a lot of rabbit holes or, just a lot of new information that maybe you've never heard before. And I totally remember being there. So I think just being mindful of that, right?
And graceful. And, when it's too much, turn it off.
Exactly. Yes. When it becomes too much, like, you can pick it back up when you're ready, and you will.
And you're not alone. So when you're asking a question in the comments of our YouTube video, in the comments of our Kajabi platform, in our community groups, there's real people on the other side of this that are, in connection with you. So, but you can't. The answer is no if you don't ask, and so if you don't reach out for help, we can't help you. How important is it to ask for help and to accept help?
Well, that's probably the most important part, I would say. And it's not easy, right? Some people more than others, but really, like, you're the only one that knows you and everything that you've got going on in your head and your heart. And, like, life is short and it's precious. And, like, if you can just get outside your head enough to know that you are not alone. Like, nobody, this is the most, like, loving community. No judgment, right? Like, we all carry our own different stuff, and it's not, like, we're here because we want to acknowledge that and honor that in people, and
there's connection with very sacred space. One of the things that you and I have navigated this summer and fall is the decision around school. And you and my sister and I were all like making the same choice, but with wildly different sets of cards in our hand, and different children, different needs, different seasons, different husbands, different everything. And so we made a different decision with zero judgment, like what's best. And we helped each other, like, honor each other's truth. Like, and that's just so refreshing, especially in such a divisive, intense environment in the world right now, to be able to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what feels right. Like, can I talk this out and have someone go, you, like, trust your intuition, like, that you don't try to tell me what's right. And I don't tell you what's right. I send you back in.
And the most you can do, right, is lovingly share your truth with someone. And in, like, loving them. And to me, like, the best way you can is just, like, holding that space and honoring, like, what's right for you, what feels right for you, and what serves you where you're at in your life right now, like, might not be the same for me. And that's okay. Like,
So let's cast a vision for the future as we wrap up here. Above, down, inside out. ADIO. Above. So if we close our eyes and we imagine a collection of kids, families that are really connected to God in their faith, and they're really solid and strong within their own hearts, within their own bodies and their souls, and they've got good tribe and community around them. ADIO. And then we go out. What does the world begin to look like for our kids and their kids?
Yeah. So much brighter. Can you imagine? I by no means had a bad childhood. But if I had known half of what I've been able to learn and grasp and action the last 4 to 5 years, if I'd have known that as a child, like, can you imagine how much different life would be, and children, and, not doom and gloom, but, like, look around, right? All of the disease and the behavioral and neurological issues and obesity and all the things, like, with children and teenagers now that our parent just wasn't as prevalent, like, even 30, 50 years ago. And so to have this, like, I can't think of a better gift to give the future.
Wow. I'm excited to see what 2023 brings. And I know we are optimistic. We are expecting miracles. And we're dedicated to creating miracles. I think this is work. This isn't just like, yo, God, you want to drop those miracles in? And I take that from your talk here and the talks that you've given is like, you gotta go for it. You gotta go get it. It's this is a journey, but you have to row the boat, not just like float down the stream, right? And so we're grateful to have you guys here. Rachel has really helped big time in so many ways in getting all of the network offerings together, and specifically the Kids Corner. So we're excited for you guys to go play in there. Yes. Last thing, you're looking through that camera, and Rachel in the storm is on the other side, because you know how many moms are like, they're in it right now, and there's hope is a figment of their imagination. If you look in there and you say one thing to the mom in the storm, boy, I know.
Yeah, it gets me emotional, but like, don't give up, and whatever it takes, like, go all in on yourself, and like, I promise you, you are not alone, and there is so much like hope and healing to be had on the other side of like wherever you're at right now.
Expecting miracles, friends. You will see so much more of her and me coming very, very soon. Thank you for joining us in this If They Knew. Yes. Play around in the network, and we're here if you need us. We'll see you later.